the Great Wall of China, the largest structure ever built, and one of the world's great icons. We're going to follow it on foot. We'll walk across burning deserts, climb high into the mountains, and venture into China's furthest, most inhospitable reaches. We'll meet the people who live and work along the most remote, but perhaps the most romantic stretch of the wall. This is the China the tourist rarely sees. The China of ancient tradition. We'll get to the heart of it on Walking the World. For the Chinese, the Great Wall is the symbol of national identity. It's everywhere you look. It's on T-shirts and stamps. It's on every tourist visa. It's the symbol of the national police force. The Great Wall pickup is China's most popular brand. The Great Wall lies at the very heart of Chinese culture. For centuries, it defined the nation's borders. The people inside it were the Han Chinese. Those beyond it, the challenging outsiders. It's not just the Chinese who are fascinated by the Great Wall. It's a major international attraction. Here at the wall's most well-known section, at Badaling, just outside Beijing, thousands of tourists come every day. For the visitors, this is the very essence of the Great Wall. Except it's not. It's a fake, a reconstruction built in the 1960s as part of Mao Zedong's campaign to boost Chinese pride. The real wall, as we shall see, doesn't look like this at all. And there are other myths about the Great Wall. For one thing, you can't see the wall from space, at least not with the unaided eye. In October 2003, China's first astronaut, Yang Liwei, announced, "The Earth looked very beautiful from space, but I did not see our Great Wall." For another thing, there's not one single continuous wall. The Great Wall is in fact a series of barriers built up over 2,000 years in many different places. Nobody can say just how long the Great Wall is. New sections are still being discovered. So far, a total of nearly 4,500 miles of wall have been identified. Now that's a long walk, though some have done it. But we're going to walk a single section, one of the oldest, remotest, and least visited. It's also one of the most challenging. This is a walk for people prepared to take a risk, and who really like it hot and dry. Our inspiration is Xuanzang, a 7th century scholar who walked the length of the ancient Silk Road in search of Buddhist scriptures from India. He was the origin of the famous monkey legend. Stories describing his adventures with his companions, Brother Sand, the river monster, Pigface, the glutton cast out from heaven, the Dragon King transformed into a horse, and of course, Monkey, the trickster. But the real Xuanzang walked alone for thousands of miles in the shelter of the Great Wall, and we're following in his footsteps, or some of them at least. We've come to Lanzhou, a large, vibrant city that straddles the Yellow River. It's a chance to get acclimated to the heat and to absorb the unique atmosphere of this part of China. For a walk this challenging, we're going to need supplies. And down a side street, we find a market. It's not immediately obvious what everything is. There are all sorts of fruits and vegetables, pastries that might be sweet or savory, and they're all being sold at the tops of their voices in the local Gansu dialect. There are even potato chips. And crowding into the market, a wide variety of people, including the Muslim minorities who live all along the Silk Road. Along the riverbank, there's an unexpected sight, an ancient feat of engineering that once made the city possible. By bringing life to this arid land, these giant water wheels, more than 30 feet high, are all that remain. More than 250 once lined the river's edge, extracting water from the mighty river to irrigate the parched soils. Now the job is done by electric pumps. But the skills that created the wheels are still alive in craftsmen like Deng Hua, who look after the remaining wheels and make small replicas as souvenirs. Just along the riverbank, what looks like a panel of blow-up pigs turns out to be a sheepskin raft. New Chang is one of the few remaining Yellow River raftsmen. But there's no time for a ride. It's time to leave Lanzhou and meet the first real challenge of our walk. Tomorrow, we'll be heading out into the desert. We'll get our first sight of the oldest section of the Great Wall. And from now on, water so plentiful here will be our biggest luxury. In the second leg of our Great Wall walk, we're striking out in the footsteps of the great walker Xuanzang. Our route takes us across the Tengger Desert to the great Silk Road cities beyond. It seems an unpromising start, but this small area of marshland is where the trail begins. And this is our first glimpse of the real, original Great Wall of China. It's a world away from the tourist site back near Beijing. This is what remains of the high walls built 2,000 years ago to keep out the invaders from Mongolia. There has been no attempt to restore or even preserve it. The trail through the marsh is a gentle beginning, but just beyond lies the desert, and that's a different matter. In the shifting sands of the desert, there's no clear trail. In places, the wall itself is all but buried. We have to pick out a path for ourselves, staying as close to the wall as possible. Fortunately, the towers that punctuated the wall still reach above the sands, marking out the route as the wall marches ahead. It's early summer, and the heat, dryness, and dust of the desert are almost overwhelming. It's hard to believe anything can survive here, but life is all around. Further into the desert, the sand dunes reach up to 30 feet high. This is the classic desert landscape. To walk through it is an unforgettable experience. A string of camels completes the picture. Once this was the only way for Chinese merchants to trade with Central Asia and Europe beyond. Protected by the Great Wall, they took silk, jade, and porcelain along the winding trail, returning with gold, ivory, and jewels. The camels carried the precious goods, while the traders walked alongside. But this isn't a real camel train, for hidden between the dunes is a visitor center, where more adventurous tourists come for a taste of the desert. These are Bactrian camels with 2 humps. They're native to this part of China, although in 2002 there were just 950 of them roaming wild. They're well adapted for this dramatic climate. At some 4,000 feet above sea level, the winters here are brutal, with average temperatures of -15 degrees Fahrenheit. The camels grow a shaggy coat to protect them. Then, as temperatures soar in summer, the winter coat drops away, leaving the camels looking somewhat moth-eaten. As we walk, the scenery is gradually changing. Seeking refuge from the heat, we head for a Buddhist temple built right onto the Great Wall as a resting place for travelers. Next to it, a shepherd has brought his sheep into a small patch of shade. Around us, the sand dunes are giving way to stones and scrub. There are small hillocks scattered across the landscape. According to the shepherd, they're the graves of local people, his kinsmen, who by custom are buried out in the desert. After miles in the parched desert, there's only one thing a desert walker really longs for: a break from the trail in a green, lush oasis. Seems heaven sent. To a Silk Road traveler, 1,000 years ago, it would have been literally a lifeline. Today, the year-round natural water supply supports a large and thriving community. We head for the ancient city of Wuwei, guarded by a massive city gate. There's not much sign of the traditional city. China's economic boom has reached even this far into the desert. We're arriving on a Saturday afternoon. The town square is where everyone gets together. There's a market, selling everything from insect spray to motor scooters. The giant statue is a familiar symbol throughout China, but it has a special significance here. The original 2,000-year-old statuette was found in Wuwei. For lunch, we've come to a specialty food market in search of a local variation on a Chinese favorite: hand-stretched noodles. Madame Sun and her well-drilled team are producing what's known as the 3-package meal. It's part cooking, part theater. Somehow, the noodles never, ever touch the ground. The noodles go into